My younger brother had always carried himself like the world owed him attention. Even as kids, he took up space effortlessly. He talked louder than everyone else, laughed harder, and never doubted that people would listen. When he interrupted, adults smiled. When he crossed lines, they brushed it off. "That's just Jason," they'd say, like that explained everything. I grew up watching that dynamic settle into place. He was celebrated for his confidence. I was praised for being easy, quiet, cooperative, the kind of child who didn't cause problems. I learned early that peace in our family came from swallowing words and letting things slide. So I did, for years. Time passed, life moved on, and eventually we both became parents. I built my world around my daughter, Lily. She was thoughtful, observant, the kind of kid who noticed when adults were tense and tried to make herself smaller to compensate. Jason had a son, Noah. Loud, outgoing, just like him. Family gatherings slowly became showcases of that same old pattern, only now it played out through our children. It always felt off, but I kept telling myself it didn't matter. Kids didn't notice this stuff, right? I told myself to stay calm, to be mature, to not make waves. That was my default setting. Then the message came through. It was a regular afternoon, nothing dramatic. Lily was beside me on the couch, bent over her homework, pencil tapping against the page as she thought. My phone buzzed with the familiar sound of the family group chat. I almost ignored it. Those messages were usually harmless updates or jokes I didn't find funny. Almost. Jason's name sat at the top of the screen. I opened it casually, expecting logistics or small talk. Instead, the words landed like a sudden cold drop in my chest. "Just a heads up, your child isn't important enough to attend my kid's elementary school graduation party. We're keeping it small. No greeting. No explanation. Just that." I read it again, slower this time. My mind tried to soften it, tried to reinterpret it into something less cruel. Maybe he meant numbers were limited. Maybe it came out wrong. But the wording was sharp, deliberate. There was no room to misunderstand. Then came the reactions. A thumbs up from an uncle. A heart from an aunt. A laughing reaction from a cousin who always followed Jason's lead. And from the people whose silence mattered most. Nothing at all. No pushback. No, hey, that's not okay. Just quiet agreement. I felt something heavy settle in my stomach. Not anger yet. More like a familiar disappointment that had been waiting its turn for years. I glanced at Lily. She was still working, unaware, humming softly under her breath. I should have locked my phone immediately. I should have hidden my face. But my expression must have shifted, because she looked up, eyebrows knitting together. "Mom," she asked, her voice small. "Why do you look sad?" I tried to answer quickly, tried to smile. But kids have a way of seeing through weak cover stories. Her eyes flicked to my phone, then back to me. Another pause, heavier this time. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked. The question cut straight through me. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, almost apologetic. Like she was already taking responsibility for someone else's cruelty. Tears pooled in her eyes before I could stop them. She didn't sob. She didn't throw a fit. She just sat there, shoulders slightly hunched, like she'd already accepted the verdict. In that moment, everything shifted. This wasn't about Jason anymore. It wasn't about a party or family politics. It was about what my daughter was learning right now in real time about her worth. About whether people were allowed to dismiss her, and whether her mother would stay silent when they did. Something inside me hardened, not with rage, but with clarity. I stood up slowly. The room we were in wasn't quiet. Relatives were visiting that afternoon, scattered around the living room and kitchen, talking over each other, laughing, sipping coffee. Jason was there too, leaned back comfortably, scrolling on his phone like he'd just dropped a harmless comment instead of a bomb. I didn't rush. I didn't shout. I simply picked up my phone and took a breath. "All right," I said, my voice calm but steady. Conversations around the room slowed. A few heads turned. Since we're ranking children now, I think it's time everyone hears something. Silence fell fast. Jason looked up, a faint smirk still on his face, like he expected me to back down or make a joke. He'd seen me stay quiet my whole life. He thought this would be no different. I looked at Lily first, gave her a small nod. Then I looked around the room at the adults who had liked the message, laughed at it, or said nothing at all. This wasn't a reaction. This was a decision. And for the first time, Jason didn't have the upper hand. Not anymore. I stayed standing, phone still in my hand, but I didn't wave it around or shove it in anyone's face. I didn't need to. The room had already shifted. The energy was different now. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Like everyone suddenly realized this wasn't a casual family moment anymore. This was a line being drawn. Jason's smirk faded, replaced by confusion. He looked around, probably expecting someone to back him up, to laugh it off, to tell him I was being dramatic. No one did. My parents avoided eye contact. A couple of relatives suddenly found the carpet very interesting. I went on, steady and clear. I didn't plan to bring work into this house, I said. And I definitely didn't plan to make tonight awkward. But I won't sit quietly while my child learns that being related to someone means accepting disrespect. Jason scoffed, but it sounded weaker this time. So what, you're saying my kid doesn't deserve his own party? I shook my head. No. I'm saying no child deserves to be used as an excuse for cruelty. That landed. Because that's what it was. Not boundaries. Not logistics. Cruelty wrapped in confidence. I glanced at Lily again. She was still close to me, her small hand gripping the edge of my sleeve. Her eyes were red, but she was listening. Really listening. And that mattered more than anyone else in that room. I softened my voice when I spoke to her again, but I didn't lower it. You belong in rooms where people are glad you exist, I said. Not where they debate your worth. She nodded slowly. I could see her shoulders relax just a little. Behind her, Jason's wife shifted again, clearly uncomfortable now. This wasn't the scene she'd imagined when she backed her husband's message. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, then thought better of it. My dad finally spoke. Let's all calm down. This doesn't need to turn into. It already did, I interrupted, still calm. The moment a child was made to feel small. That shut him up. I turned my phone back toward myself and locked the screen, then placed it on the table between us. Not dramatically, just deliberately. The scholarship ceremony, I continued, isn't about showing off. It's about recognizing kids who work hard, who show up, who support others. Lily didn't ask for it. She earned it. Jason frowned deeper now. What does that have to do with us? It has everything to do with us, I replied. Because you decided tonight was the night to decide which kids matter in this family. His jaw tightened. You're twisting this. No, I said. I'm clarifying it. The silence stretched. You could feel everyone recalculating, replaying the group chat message in their heads, realizing how ugly it sounded now that it was out in the open. I wasn't finished. I'm not asking for apologies, I said. I'm not asking for invitations. I'm setting a standard. Jason leaned forward. And what standard is that? That my daughter will never have to shrink to make someone else feel big, I said. Not even you. That's when something finally cracked. Not in him. In the room. One aunt cleared her throat. Another cousin shifted closer to Lily and gave her a small smile. Tiny gestures, but they mattered. The silent approval that hadn't shown up in the group chat was starting to surface now, face to face, where it was harder to hide. Jason noticed it too. This is ridiculous, he muttered. You're making a scene. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. No, I'm ending one. I picked up my phone again, not to show anything new, just to signal I was done explaining myself. You can host whatever party you want, I said. Invite whoever you want. That's your right. But don't expect me to teach my child that love comes with conditions. I turned slightly so Lily was fully behind me, my body between her and the rest of the room without even thinking about it. Instinct took over. Protection over politeness. We'll celebrate in places where she's celebrated, I added. And trust me, there are plenty of those. Jason opened his mouth, then closed it. For once, he didn't have a clever comeback. No joke. No insult. No easy way to flip the narrative. Because he wasn't dealing with a quiet older sister anymore. He was dealing with a parent who had decided, very publicly, that the cycle stopped here. The room stayed quiet as I reached for Lily's coat. No one tried to stop us. No one argued. No one laughed. As we walked toward the door, I heard my mom whisper my name, unsure, hesitant. I didn't turn around. Some moments don't need closure. They need boundaries. And that night, my daughter walked out with her head a little higher than she walked in. Jason's laugh was supposed to save him. That was his move. Whenever something got uncomfortable, he laughed like it was all a joke, like none of it mattered. But this time, the sound came out wrong. Too sharp. Too fast. Even he could feel it slip. What does that have to do with anything? He said, forcing another chuckle, eyes darting around the room to see if anyone was backing him up. No one was. I could feel the shift. It was subtle, but it was there. The same people who had liked his message earlier were suddenly quiet, staring at the floor, at their hands, anywhere but at Lily. It has everything to do with perspective, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I wasn't performing. I wasn't trying to win. I was done explaining myself to people who only listened when power entered the room. You see parties. I see futures. That line landed heavier than I expected. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. Jason had always lived moment to moment, spotlight to spotlight. Applause mattered more than impact. Appearances mattered more than consequences. I locked my phone and slipped it back into my pocket. No need to keep showing proof. The point had already been made. You decided to rank children today, I continued, eyes moving around the room, making sure everyone heard this part. I decided to correct the narrative. That's when our mom finally spoke. She said my name softly, the way she used to when we were kids, and she wanted to smooth things over without actually addressing the problem. It was instinct. Damage control. But it was too late for that. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel that familiar knot of anger or disappointment. Just clarity. Clear, sharp, and strangely calm. I won't teach my daughter to beg for space in rooms she deserves to be in naturally, I said. That sentence wasn't for Jason. It wasn't even for my parents. It was for Lily. For the version of her that would remember this night. For the version of me that wished someone had said those words years ago. Jason's wife leaned toward him and whispered something under her breath. I didn't catch the words, but I saw his jaw tighten, his shoulders stiffen. He hated this part. The part where he wasn't in control. Where the room wasn't laughing with him anymore. Then he said it. The line that told me everything I needed to know. You're really going to make this a big deal? There it was. Not concern. Not reflection. Just irritation that the spotlight had shifted. I nodded once. No hesitation. Yes, because she's a big deal. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The certainty in it did the work for me. Then I turned to Lily. Up until that moment, she had been quiet, watching adults talk over her life, like she wasn't sitting right there. Her shoulders were tense, hands folded tight in her lap, like she was bracing for something else to go wrong. Go grab your shoes, I told her gently. She blinked. Why? Because we're leaving, I said. We're going to celebrate you. That's when I saw it. The confusion easing. The tears fully gone. A small smile creeping in, careful at first, like she didn't trust it yet. Then bigger. Real. She stood up and ran down the hall. As we walked toward the door, the room stayed silent. No one tried to stop us. No one knew what to say anymore. Jason muttered something behind us, half under his breath. Don't be dramatic. I stopped, turned around. This time, I didn't look at him like a sister. I looked at him like someone who had just learned a lesson the hard way. This isn't drama, I said. This is boundaries. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. Because everyone in that room felt it. The shift. The line that had finally been drawn. The realization that something old had ended and something new had started. I took Lily's hand and walked out. And for the first time, I knew she'd remember this moment not for the rejection she felt at the beginning, but for the way she was chosen at the end. Later that night, the world felt quieter in the best possible way. Lily and I sat in a small ice cream place a few blocks from home. The kind with sticky tables, bright menus, and a bell that rang every time the door opened. Nothing fancy. Nothing staged. Just a place where kids laughed too loud and nobody cared who you were related to. She ordered chocolate with sprinkles. I ordered vanilla. We sat by the window. At first, she was quiet, spoon moving slowly, like she was still processing the day. Big emotions don't leave kids all at once. They linger. They settle. They wait to see if it's safe. Then, out of nowhere, she smiled. Not the polite smile kids give when they think they're supposed to be okay. A real one. The kind that reaches their eyes and loosens their shoulders. She told me about a joke someone had told at school. About a drawing she wanted to finish. About how cold the ice cream made her teeth feel. And she laughed. That laugh did something to me. It confirmed I'd done the right thing. Because all day, even while standing my ground, a quiet voice in the back of my mind had tried to creep in. The one that sounds like guilt but pretends to be reason. The one that says maybe I could have handled it softer. Maybe I could have waited. Maybe I made it bigger than it needed to be. But watching my daughter laugh again erased that voice completely. No family approval was worth the cost of her self-worth. No tradition was worth teaching her to stay silent when she was hurt. No peace was worth swallowing disrespect and calling it love. We finished our ice cream, hands sticky, spirits lighter. When we got home, she hugged me tight before bed. "Thanks, Mom," she said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. And in that moment, I knew something important had shifted. Not just for her. For me too. The next day, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The family group chat, resurrected like nothing had happened, suddenly full of messages. People asking me to reconsider. Telling me I took things the wrong way. Saying Jason didn't mean it like that. Saying family should stick together. Funny how quickly people find their voices when consequences show up. I read the messages without reacting. No anger. No satisfaction. Just clarity. Because I'd seen this pattern before. When someone speaks up in the moment, they're called dramatic. When they walk away, they're called cold. When they protect themselves or their child, they're told they're breaking the family. But what never gets addressed is the original harm. The comment. The dismissal. The ranking. The quiet permission everyone else gave by staying silent. I didn't reply to the chat. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something I'd spent years unlearning. You don't owe explanations to people who only listen when it's convenient. You don't owe access to people who treat kindness like weakness. And you don't owe peace to people who only want it if it costs you something. Jason learned something that day, whether he admitted it or not. He learned that words don't disappear just because you say them casually. He learned that being older, louder, or more favored doesn't give you the right to decide who matters. He learned that his authority in the family wasn't as untouchable as he thought. But more importantly, my daughter learned something that will stay with her far longer than any party invite ever could. She learned that when someone makes her feel small, she doesn't have to accept it to keep the peace. She learned that love doesn't require humiliation. She learned that boundaries aren't punishments. They're protection. And she learned that her worth is not something anyone else gets to vote on. Not her uncle. Not her cousins. Not even family. Especially not family. That night didn't end with applause or apologies. It ended with ice cream, laughter, and a child who went to sleep knowing her mother would always choose her dignity over comfort. And that lesson? That's one she'll carry into every room she ever walks into. Long after parties are forgotten. Long after group chats go quiet. long after people who underestimated her realized they never had the authority to do so in the first place. If this story hit you in any way, let me know in the comments. Like the video if you believe boundaries matter, even with family. And subscribe to Secret Twist Stories for more real stories where respect is earned, not begged for.